Senator Tester.
Thank you, Chairman Hoban and Ranking Member, for having this hearing. And Dr. Gottlieb, I want to echo Senator Collins' comments. I appreciate the work you've been doing, and I wish you the best moving forward. Hopefully you can keep it up. And I want to talk about generic drugs, because when there are multiple generic drugs on the market, that competition helps the consumer. Your agency has the final say in what products can go on the shelf and which ones cannot. In the past, the FDA has been slow to approve cheaper generic drugs. I think a little over a year ago, they had about 4,000 generic drug applications that were waiting for approval. In the justification for your budget request, you said that the FDA has approved more generic drug applications this year than ever before. That is good news. I commend you on that. What I want to know is, with this budget request, with this one, are you asking for the resources to be able to keep up with the rate for generic drug approvals?
Thank you for the question, Senator. We've almost fully eliminated that backlog. Last year, as you noted, we approved over 1,000 generic drugs, which was a record for the agency, and we hope to best that record this year. The budget request that we're asking for with respect to the new initiative, the resources that would go towards the generic drug approval process, we think can fundamentally transform that process by moving towards an application process that would be much more seamless and lower cost for the generic manufacturers, would allow us to do assessments more quickly and give feedback on the quality of the application right up front, so we can reduce what we call cycling. One of the reasons why the generic drug review process is longer than it ought to be, and we want to get review times down, isn't because it takes us a long time to review the application, but the applications undergo multiple cycles of review. We have to go back to the sponsor and request more information. They resubmit the application, it undergoes another review cycle. We had a very similar problem, and I'll close here, but we had a very similar problem with respect to our new drug review process. When I was last at the agency 10 years ago, we made a deliberate effort to reduce the multiple cycles of review. We were successful at doing that. Now we're making a concerted effort to do the same thing on the generic drug side.
Doctor, how many, what's the backlog right now?
I believe we might have fully eliminated the backlog. I can get you exact details on that.
That'd be good.
But it should be worked off.
You just have to help me out here. A little over a year ago, there was a 4,000 generic drug application backlog. You approved 1,000 and you're caught up. What happened to the other 3,000?
I don't believe that the backlog was 4,000, but I can get you precise numbers on that, Senator. But the 1,000 that we approved are new applications.
I guess the question is that of those applications, do any of them drop off the list, or do they stay there as a backlog?
I'd have to come back to you and tell you what the backlog is, but it's substantially worked off.
And so can you give me any idea how long it takes right now from the time they come in and ask for generic approval till, assuming everything goes fine?
Yeah, we've committed that applications coming in that meet certain requirements, we're going to review in 8 or 10 months on the initial review. I will tell you, though, the one thing that to keep in mind is that there's always going to be a certain number of applications that are with the agency because there's so many applications filed with the agency.
Okay, I've talked to many doctors that say, generics come along, they do a good job, somebody will buy up this generic, they'll tweak it a little bit and jack the price through the roof. Do you have any control over that?
If people make...
they'll buy a generic, they'll change it, but really not enough to do any more than just say we've changed it.
Yeah, typically, so if you're talking about someone who might take a short-acting drug and turn it into a longer-acting formulation or reformulate it where it can be delivered through another route of delivery, typically we wouldn't forestall that kind of incremental innovation. I think it's really incumbent upon the market to decide whether or not they want to pay for it.
Can you I know, but if that drug isn't there anymore, if that prescription drug isn't there anymore because they've changed it a little bit and pulled it off, and now it's just basically the same drug with a minor modification. And I don't know, I'm not a chemist, so if I'm not correct in this, you'll have to tell me. But they modify it very minor and then jack the prices up because it's no longer the generic that was approved by you.
If the initial generic, so you're spot on, but if the initial generic drug wasn't withdrawn for safety reasons,
yes,
then that RLD, that reference listed drug still exists, and a generic manufacturer, another generic company could come in and develop a generic copy to the original formulation.
Okay.